Hey, the one guy who watches all my videos, you're back. Well, look, we got to weld up a cylinder here. This is a thumb cylinder off of a Bobcat excavator, like any 50, maybe 55, hell, I don't remember. But what happens is these fittings here where your hoses connect to, they don't take a lot of abuse, and they break quite often. Let's get a closer look here and I'll show what I'm talking about. So if you're watching this video, this might look familiar. You see that this fitting right here is friction welded from the factory, and then this piece here goes into this, and I think they just super glue that in because it doesn't hold for shit. I'm just kidding about the super glue, but it doesn't work very well. See how it's just bent off to the side there, nearly spun out. And this one actually happened on both fittings. This one is also broke, so we got to cut both these off with our cutting wheel, you know, right here at the base, and we're going to weld on new fittings. These are the fittings we're going to weld on. See, it's got a JIC there, and it's just a pipe thread there, but we're going to cut down that pipe thread just a little bit so it's a little bit shorter, and we're just going to weld it right to the cylinder. So let's show you how we do that. So first thing we got to do is take our cylinder apart, and I'm going to rebuild the cylinder. Whenever I take a cylinder apart, I just rebuild it, repack it, you know, put a new seal kit in it. It's just cheap insurance. You know, and some people say that you can do this job without even taking the cylinder apart. Well, you'll see when you take the cutoff wheel and you grind these fittings off, I don't care how you cut them off, debris is going to get down in that hole. Contamination is going to get down in there, and you're not going to be able to keep all of it out of the cylinder. And that's all you need is a piece of that metal or a piece of that trash to shoot back into your control valve and cause a problem. So really just take a few minutes, take the cylinder apart, and I've done them in the field where I've seen them broke off. Someone will call for a hydraulic leak, and you get out there and find the fittings broke off. So in that case, I don't have a seal kit with me, and you know, I won't rebuild the cylinder, but I still take it apart. But if I know they broke the fitting off, I go ahead and take a seal kit with me. So just do a quick rebuild. And there's our rod. Alright, so now that I got my rod removed, I went ahead and put it up so that I can avoid getting contamination all over the rod itself. Just kind of get it out of the way. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut off these two fittings right at the base there. And it might be a good idea to make you a mark, you know, just so you know the direction of the fitting, but these are pretty much straight in line with each other, so I'm not going to mark these. Now from my cutoff wheel to my flap wheel, we're just going to grind it down smooth. Then using a drill bit, I just like to clean out the hole there to get all the shavings and any extra metal slivers that might be in there. And that's what it looks like after we cut the fitting off and grind it down and clean the hole out. And there's the rod end, and this would be the base end. And let's take a look. See that debris that fell down in there? If you don't take your rod apart, that debris is going to wash right back through your valve. It can be tough to get this thing completely spotless. Just take your time and keep going until you don't see any more debris in there. Alright, that looked good, so now we're going to cut down my fittings here. Like I said, I just like to cut off, I don't know, about a ½ inch of that thread just to lower the fitting a little closer to the cylinder there. So we can see the difference there, about a ½ inch. Okay, now that we got our fittings cut, time to line them up and get them welded on. So let's get that done real quick. All right, using my Miller-Matic 211 and flux core. I always weld with flux core because I'm always welding outside here in the shop. So I'm gonna get my fittings lined up, tacked on. And again, we're hooking hoses to these, so we just want to get them as straight as we can, and we can take up the slack with the hoses. Make sure we're directly over the hole, of course. I almost forgot to I put a metal cap over the threads because when we start welding that, we don't want any slag getting onto the threads or the JIC fitting. Here it is after welding. You know, I usually run 2 passes on it, and that way you want to make sure there's no pitting or undercuts or anything like that where fluid could leak. And gosh, I've done hundreds of these and never had an issue. I used to pressure test them, but now I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to have an issue, so I don't even pressure test them. One thing to note though is I like to weld these pretty hot, and what happens is when you weld this fitting here on the rod end hot, that this barrel can actually draw. It can get egg-shaped. So then when you go to put your gland nut back in, it may not screw in or go in. So what you have to do is I put my mic in there and see which side's the wide side, and then we can put a big C-clamp or something on there, kind of straighten it out a little bit, get our gland started, and that'll usually take care of it. So no big deal. Just note that if you do this and it does draw a little bit, that's normal. So I rebuilt the cylinder, got it all put together, and then I put my plastic caps back over my threads here, and then we're just going to take a little Bobcat gray paint and just cover up those areas that we just welded on. Get that new fitting welded or painted. And then around the front where I scratched up a little bit with the tool, taking it apart. So that's all there is to repairing that cylinder. You know, you don't have to throw it in the trash. I see this all the time. These fittings on these cylinders break, and what do I do? What do I do? Do I have to buy a new cylinder? No, you just have to be either know someone who can weld or competently weld yourself. And other than that, it's pretty easy and straightforward. I mean, I think probably the biggest thing is cleanliness, is keeping the inside of this cylinder clean, not letting any debris get back in your system. So that's probably the #1 thing you got to watch out for. So. And it's probably not the only way to do it. It's just how I did it. Thanks for watching.